I'll just go out and say it. Whoever wins this game, I'm rooting for all the way. I want them to win it all because I don't hate the Lions. The Lions are a tremendous story. They are a team that has been historically bad forever. And if they beat the 49ers, they absolutely deserve to move on and go win the Super Bowl. That being said, I am not rooting for the Lions this week. I want them to lose. I want the 49ers to win. What a tragedy, what a travesty it would be if Dan Campbell just shows up out of nowhere. You know, Kyle Shanahan's been building up this 49er team for several years. And I keep being told he's a genius. He's this, that. He's going to get his Super Bowls. Kyle Shanahan has more than enough weapons to get it done. More than enough weapons to get it done. It's time to win the Super Bowl, Kyle. In order to do that, you have to beat the Lions first. If Dan Campbell comes in here after, just a couple years ago being a poverty franchise and goes on and does it before you do it, that's such a bad look, Kyle. One thing that I find interesting about this matchup, not even just about the game on the field, it's the overarching, it's the disparity between kind of the old school type of coaching versus the new school. I feel like Dan Campbell kind of strikes me as an old school, I don't know if this is a bad term to use, but like a football guy, kind of, people say meathead, he is a guy that's going to put it all out on the line. He's going to make everyone believe in themselves in the locker room. Whereas Shanahan kind of, in my opinion, represents a new style of football where everything is, I don't think Shanahan is even analytics driven. There's certain coaches where I feel like they play a lot of analytical style, kinds of games. And it's not even just in football, it's in many sports. And it drives me nuts. There's a human aspect to it. And that's what I like about Dan Campbell. If he would have listened to analytics, he might have beat the Cowboys, a couple of weeks ago. Instead of going for it, going for 2 from the 7-yard line. Dan Campbell is the kind of coach where he takes risks, and those risks will either, no matter what, I think his players respect it. But they're the type of risk that can lose you a ball game, but also they could catch a team off guard and be the reason why you win a ball game.
I think what you're saying right now is essentially, to me, the major difference, and there are many, but the major difference between Dan Campbell, and I just fucking lost his name, the Chargers' old coach.
The Chargers' old coach, Brandon Staley?
Brandon Staley, thank you, yes. Because Staley was widely known for going for it on 4th down, as much as humanly possible, and they just continued to not get it. And they would just bury themselves in a hole, whereas Dan Campbell goes for it on 4th and 1, 4th and 2 a lot. I think there was a play early on this season where they went for it on 4th and 7 and they got it. And it was a running back draw to David Montgomery. It was the fucking balls on this guy. They just do it. And I think what you're saying is, the what is it that Antonio Pierce is with the Raiders? Jesus Christ. He has his players bought in. Okay. Mm-hmm. The culture. Jesus. Dan Campbell has a culture. Chargers don't. Mm-hmm. Right? And being bought in, practicing, you also have Ben Johnson, which helps, but they're able to execute way better because they are bought in, because of their culture, because of their fight, their grit, right? They have it on their hats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the Lions compared to the Chargers for me.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to say it's almost a battle. The head coaching battle itself is almost a battle of brains versus brawn. You know, and obviously these guys aren't like fighting, but the game of football is a war on the field. Dan Campbell, I mean, Kyle Shanahan's got to be prepared for Dan Campbell to take risks because he's going to take risks in this game. I wouldn't be shocked if there's a fake punt, if there's, some sort of fake. Dan Campbell is notorious for this. He does things that Kyle Shanahan wouldn't ever think about doing. But Kyle Shanahan, I swear, knows how to call a game probably better than Dan Campbell could ever think of calling a game. Right? So that's really, I guess, what I'm trying to say in the differences between the coaching styles. But Dan Campbell, if I had to bet, he will motivate his guys to run through brick walls. I really feel like the team chemistry aspect to the Lions, I feel like they're really all bought in. They really feel like they're in together, playing for one another, whereas the Niners also feel that way, but maybe I feel like there's just some sort of magical feeling that I get about Detroit, this year, and maybe it just has to do with the fact that they're a young team. They haven't been here before. The Niners have been here every year practically since like 2019, except for 2020. The Niners are a more experienced team than the Lions. But man, are the Lions hungrier? Is that a fair question to ask? Like maybe they're hungry, whereas maybe the 49ers are just, it sounds ridiculous. I know it sounds ridiculous, what I'm saying, who's hungrier. This is professional sports. Of course, they're all hungry. But I don't know. I just get that vibe from the Lions. I don't know. They've played this way all season long, where they're just super hungry. And I want to backpedal. I'm picking the 49ers. I know Mike's supposed to give his pick first. I'm picking the 49ers to win this game. But I would be lying if I didn't say there is something about this Lions team where I could see them pulling off an upset. I know the Niners are 7-point favorites, but man, I just want to give huge respect. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a terrific weapon. He's a terrific wide receiver. Sam Laporta, terrific tight end. In his first year, Jahmyr Gibbs, wow, what an electric player. One of the most electric players in the entire NFL. David Montgomery can wear down a defense. David Montgomery, oh man, the 49ers better not hope that they're playing from behind because I know the Lions will run it right up the middle with David Montgomery to wear down the defense, and the drives will get long. Jared Goff has been playing great. He comes from Marin. And 49er fans, if you're still watching this, and didn't tune this out because this seems like I'm just like absolutely giving nothing but compliments to the Lions, please hear me out. I'll get to where I think the 49ers are going to win. The Lions defense has been playing very well too. You know what I mean? They are an all-around very good football team. And they should be absolutely proud of where they've gone. The 49ers, I think, man, this is tough because I feel less confident about the Niners this week because of the way the Packer game played out. But as long as it doesn't rain, I think the Niners will play better. I don't know if they could have played worse against the Packers. I mean, they could have lost. But really, like, everything did not go their way until like the final drive. Or, mostly most of the game didn't go their way until the final drive, and they were still able to pull it out. Whereas the Packers were playing well, it seemed like all game, and just couldn't seal the deal. And they were a hot football team who most recently beat the Packers. I'm going to look up a stat real quick because I feel like this is a big factor that has to do with the fact that the Lions played very well, at home, and they're not going to be playing in a dome in this game. I don't know. I'm kind of all over the place in this little section of the video. So I'm just, it's really tough for me. It's really tough for me right now. Mike, can you take over while I gather my thoughts? Because
Yeah.
I don't do this very, very often where I feel like I'm just so flustered by the game. Like, it's going to be a good ass game. I don't think it's going to be one-sided.
I texted you maybe the day before the Packers game or the day of, and I just asked you, nervous, ? And then your response was something along the lines of no, period, ready, right? And I mean, I was asking that nervous question because I felt like the Packers could do it, and they almost did. So now I must ask you, are you nervous?
Yes, I'm very nervous as a 49er fan, and maybe I shouldn't be. And I'll probably get a lot of comments, on like our video throughout the week about, why the 49ers are going to win. But man, this Lions team is just like, they're a gritty football team. They are beatable though.
They're absolutely beatable. I mean, the Packers handled them on Thanksgiving in a game that the Lions needed to stay in the 1 seed race. If my team were facing the Lions, well, really, if I'm being honest, being that if anybody watching this video is looking at my hat, they know who my team is. The thought of my team just being in the AFC Championship makes my pants get bigger, whether it's because I shit myself or for another reason. And I would be very nervous. Okay? Sorry for the foul jokes there, but the Lions. Oh. The Titans. Sorry, this is breaking news, so I'll just drop it. The Titans are working to finalize a deal to hire Bengals offensive coordinator Brian Callahan as their next head coach. So, anyways, with the Lions, I got to start with this. Obviously, the face of the franchise, if it isn't a player, it would probably be, or if it is a player, it'd probably be Jared Goff right now. But we all know it's Dan Campbell, right? And I think almost all the credit in the world does need to go to him. But I think the guy that's getting forgotten with this Lions team is their general manager, Brad Holmes, who has absolutely done a masterclass in roster building, dating back to even before they traded for Jared Goff in the Matt Stafford trade. We're going to talk about the Raiders later and Antonio Pierce and everything, and I think the key difference between where the Raiders are at now and where the Lions were when they had Brad Holmes making that trade with Stafford, getting Goff, is the Raiders don't have a player that they can trade to get 2 first-round picks and a player worth starting in return for. That was a great deal for the Lions. And then you tack onto that the fact that the Lions have drafted pretty damn well in that time frame from then till now, right? I mean, guys like Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell, Laporta this season. Oh, and Brian Branch, hell of a pick. The fact that he was even at the spot that they got him, I'm just like, he might be the steal of the draft. Brad Holmes has done a great job at GM for this team. And then you, of course, as we mentioned, you have Dan Campbell, who's, setting the tone, building the culture, getting the players to buy in. You have an offensive coordinator in Ben Johnson, who is just in his absolute bag. They were just demolishing the Buccaneers in the second half of that game. He was in his bag. Just when Ben Johnson's hot, dude, look out. Okay? for me, it's the Lions defense that scares me in this one. And the reason I say scares me is because, as I mentioned, if you look at my hat, you know what team I'm a fan of. But from a distance, as a guy who realized my team probably wasn't going to make the playoffs pretty early on the season, and a guy, myself, who really loves to root for the underdog, knowing that the Lions hadn't won a playoff game in 32 years, I can't help but root for that, right? And they got it done. They've now won 2 playoff games, right? And that's good for them. But I there's something about Dan Campbell. There's something about them, being the lone 0-16 team in NFL history. There's something about really everything about this team that really makes me root for them, to the point where I've paid attention to them for the past several years since that trade involving Jared Goff. And again, just rooting for them, watching them grow from being like 3-13 to last season, and then now getting 12 wins, winning the division. All these things that they hadn't done in so long that I can relate to as a Raider fan, right? I haven't seen my team win the division. I haven't seen my team win a playoff game in my life. It sucks. So yeah, I'm going to root for those fans to win those games because they deserve it, right? They've stuck around all this time. You see the video when they win the playoff game against the Rams of fans crying, and then they had that one guy, apparently he's a season ticket holder. He's been the season ticket holder for like 60 years. Dude with white hair, old gentleman. Just like, yeah, like finally. I'm just like, dude, this guy has waited 32 years. Let's say he's 60. He's waited half his life to see this shit happen again. That sucks. And it also sucks for Niner fans to go to 4 of the last 5 or whatever NFC Championships and lose like 3 of them or whatever the numbers are, and then go to the Super Bowls and lose those 2. It's like, yeah, that sucks. But like, this team was hot garbage, dumpster fire. What do you call it? Bottom of the barrel, right? What's the term? Poverty franchise, right? That's what the Lions have always been as long as I've known football. And here they are. I have not rooted for a team harder, besides my own team, to go all the way and win it. I have not ever rooted for a team harder. Well, that's not true. Actually, I was rooting really hard for the Ravens the year they beat you guys. And that's not because they were facing you guys. And I'm not rooting for the Lions this week because they're facing you guys. It's because of who they are, what they represent, what they've been through, right? The Ravens back in 2012, whatever year that was, it's because Ray Lewis was retiring. And they had those YouTube highlight videos of him where it would just be the Dark Knight Rises soundtrack and just him like, fight, and then like him hitting somebody super hard. I'm just like, I would get goosebumps watching that. I could watch it daily and I would get goosebumps. I've never. Those are the 2 teams I can think of that are not the Raiders that I've rooted for immensely hard. Yeah. That being said, the Raiders or the Lions are playing the Niners outdoors in Santa Clara, not at their own house. The weather's supposed to be good, but there's this tendency for Jared Goff to not play well when he's outdoors or away. Okay, right? Like, we'll see. He's also from California, as you mentioned, from pretty close by. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Jared Goff is from Marin, which is over in the Sausalito area. He actually played for Marin Catholic High School, and that's where my dad went to high school. It's where a lot of my uncles and aunts went to school. My aunt is actually in the Marin Catholic Hall of Fame for playing softball. So that's a little fun fact. And my uncle Steve used to play quarterback for that school, so I'm sure that he kind of lives a little vicariously through Jared Goff a little bit, like maybe little Uncle Rico vibes, like, yeah, if they would have put me in. No, I think he was the starting quarterback, but if I would have kept playing, we would have won state. You know, I'm just joking. I would love to see the film of my uncle playing at Marin Catholic High School. But going back to Jared Goff, he's a local guy. And I mentioned that the Lions maybe don't play as good on the road. They've only lost 3 games on the road this year out of the 5 games that they've lost. So I want to kind of walk back my comment, because if you lose 3 games on the road, that's fine. You won a majority of your road games. You deserve credit for that. I want to say the Niners probably lost. I mean, what? The games that the 49ers lost were in Cleveland. It was in Minnesota, and then at home, and then
Baltimore. There was a 3-game streak. Oh, the Bengals, and then the Ravens later. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the Rams. Technically was their other loss. Yeah. So that was also at home. So honestly, really close. The Niners have lost 3 at home. You take the Rams one with a grain of salt. The Lions have lost 3 on the road. It's a very, like, these teams, it's a great matchup. Like, how last year we were thinking, man, the NFC Championship game is going to be a great game between the Eagles and the 49ers. And I think it was going to be. And then Brock Purdy got hurt.
Yeah.
I really feel like this game is going to be exciting. I guess when I look for reasons why I'm picking the 49ers, I don't know if it's my gut, but the 49ers are called faithful, and I picked the 49ers all year, and I'm going to remain faithful to the 49ers and pick them again this weekend. And I'm going to provide a little keys to the game on how they can beat the Detroit Lions. So, the Niners in most of the games do not start off with the football. They like to defer when they win the toss, or other teams like to get the ball first. However it happens on the coin toss, the 49ers typically want to get the ball at halftime. They have to contain Jared Goff and get pressure on him. They cannot let him feel comfortable, because the Lions are going to be able to run the football. The 49ers do not have as strong of a run defense as maybe they've had in the past. Jahmyr Gibbs is a great athlete. He, whether it's him, taking the ball out of the backfield and going, rushing straight at a defense. I feel like David Montgomery is a little bit better up the middle than Jahmyr Gibbs is, but Gibbs is the more explosive player. Gibbs can, on a passing play, roll out to the left and, get the ball, and he's just so explosive. He's very fast. The 49ers need to make sure that they are tackling much better than they were last week against the Packers. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Josh Reynolds, and there's one other receiver I think on the Lions that I'm forgetting. You need to make sure that they don't beat you over the top, which the 49ers don't. But that pass rush, Nick Bosa and Chase Young need to be better this week than they were last week. And I think maybe the rain might have also had an impact on them being able to rush the passer. Man, get to Jared Goff, throw him off his game. That's where I would start. Big thing that I would do to beat the Lions is, on your first possession, take advantage of it. God forbid that you're down 7-0 to start the game. If you're able to hold them to 3-0 or 0-0, you get the ball, you drive down the field, and now you put the pressure on the Lions. The Lions are a young team. Like I said, they're not as experienced as the 49ers in the playoffs. You get them down 7-0. Maybe they play a little bit more desperately on offense, or maybe it's early in the game. They just kind of want to take it to you and rush, right? If you are able to stop them again, just keep applying pressure is all I'll say. You put pressure on the other team, they will start to get desperate. you know. Let's see. Just keep playing from ahead. I think that's the point that I'm trying to make. The Niners just they need to do what's gotten them, here all year, and they need to feed Christian McCaffrey. It doesn't have to be super complicated. I hope Debo's able to play. The matchup between him and CJ Gardner-Johnson would be, a very interesting matchup because of the trash talk that's kind of gone on between the two. But Debo luckily doesn't have a fracture on his shoulder, but he is still questionable to play, and there will be more, I guess, insight on whether or not he'll be able to play on Wednesday. My next key of the game, Brock Purdy, do not turn the ball over. If you turn the ball over, it's going to be very difficult for this team to win. And then also too, this will be my last point. I'm not going to give any more keys to the game because really I'm very interested to see the way that this one plays out. I'm not as confident in the way that this game will play out versus other 49er games. So I'm really sorry if I just completely botched this whole segment, right? I've been listening to 49er people, 49er content creators stream, and overall the vibes are super low with the 49ers. And I feel like where Shanahan operates in his best is when people have low expectations and don't expect the 49ers to just win a very important game. And he goes out and I think has a good game plan and surprises everybody. So this game is probably going to be harder than the Packers game. And right now, everybody's expectations got a little bit tempered from last week and the vibes are low. I'm saying forget that. Shanahan, I know you're going to surprise us in some way. And if it's another meltdown, my God, I'm going to throw my hat on the floor and stomp on it. Mike, you have the floor.
All right. I'll try to make this quick. Mina Kimes tweeted during the Lions and Buccaneers game, Jared Goff ranked first in QBR when kept clean this year. I'm assuming she's saying when his pocket is kept clean, when the pocket is kept clean, right? AKA when he's not pressured. First in QBR. Okay. I know maybe this is more of a fantasy football thing, but I know that when he goes and plays away and especially outdoors, he's not quite as statistically amazing. So that can be an aspect where maybe their pass game is not quite so not polarizing, but good against the Niners. Granted, I still think minus Charvarius Ward, I think, and I guess Fred Warner, the Niners pass defense is a little weaker than the run defense, right? And I would say at the same time, the Lions rushing offense is stronger than their passing offense. But I would say both are pretty good. I think if this game is a good weather game, nice, beautiful Santa Clara day in January, I don't know, let's say 65 degrees and sunny or maybe a little overcast, it's fair game. I think Brock Purdy will have a good game, but I think just as well likely is Jared Goff having a good game. I don't see why him being outdoors is going to kill him in this game. I could see it in like Chicago or Green Bay where it's 20 degrees.
Conditions are bad, yeah.
Right. Unless it's raining, I think the passing games are going to be fine. So back to that Mina Kimes tweet. He's number one in QBR when the pocket is kept clean. So I just went to ProFootballReference.com. Look up Niners defense. On Team Advanced Defense, their pressure percentage is 17th in the league, the Niners, with 20.9% pressure percentage. Total pressures, I'm assuming on the season. I don't know what number, but they have a total of 147. Do you want to know who's first in both of those categories? The Detroit Lions. The Lions have 187 pressures. Their pressure percentage is 28.2%. I don't know what Brock Purdy's stats are as far as when his pocket is kept clean and when he's getting pressured, but I'm curious. And then the other stat that I wanted to bring up, just for the sake of applying pressure and maybe adding pressure, right, is blitz percentage. The team that blitzed the most is the Minnesota Vikings. That's a pretty well-known thing with their defensive coordinator, Brian Flores. Lions are maybe top 10, it looks like, 28.7%. The Niners are the third least when it comes to blitzing the quarterback. And that could be a positive or a negative. That could be a testament to how strong their defensive line is, and keeping help on the backside of the defense, right? But I think when you're facing the quarterback that has the number one QBR in the season, when his pocket is kept clean, you're going to need Nick Bosa to step up. You're going to need to apply pressure, right? I don't know if I heard Chase Young's name last weekend. I really don't know if I heard his name. I hardly heard Bosa's name. I noticed Bosa on the final play applying the pressure that forced Jordan Love to throw the errant throw. But other than that, I don't really remember him against the Packers. Your D-line needs to step up.
He had a solid play where, he got a tackle for loss on Aaron Jones. But, like you said, when it comes to pressuring the quarterback, he hasn't had as great a season as he did last year. Last year, he was hitting a home run every play. Or not every play, but every game. Not literally, but,
Right.
but he was getting a sack every game.
So I think to finalize my thoughts in this game, I think it's going to go one or two ways. Like you said, Shanahan could shock us one or two ways. Either the Niners just blow out the Lions, and I'm going to be honest with you, I think that's very possible. I saw a few times this season where the Lions, it just seemed like they shat the bed. They were
Like
this hot team
against
the Ravens and that Packers Thanksgiving game. It just felt like, man, and there was a Bears game where they had to come back at the last second and score like 2 touchdowns. And I don't know how they pulled it off, but they did. But otherwise, it was like, dude, the Lions are going to lose to the Bears. Divisional game, but still, right?
They did lose to the Bears.
Maybe they did eventually, but I remember there was one week where they were down like 2 possessions with like 5 minutes left, and it was like, oh my God, they're going to lose. And somehow at the last minute, they pulled off the win. Mm-hmm. But maybe the second time they faced them, they lost. Point being,
so they pulled off the win at home, but they lost to the Bears on the road in December.
Yeah. Right. So point being, I think anything can happen here. I can totally see it where I think the Niners are still the best team, at least on paper, that are left. I still think so. I think right now the best team as far as how they look and how they've been playing is the Ravens. The most experienced team is the Chiefs, and the team with the most fire and the most up and coming, they're the story right now. That's the Lions, right? They're the young team that's, oh man, we'll see what happens. I think it can be that shocking ending where something happens, or the Lions could receive the ball to start the game. They score a touchdown and they keep the lead the rest of the way. I can see it happening. They can own the type of possession. They could just run. Occasional pass from Jared Goff, and just do it. Obviously, I don't know how it's going to go. Like I said, I can easily see the Niners winning this game, and I think my gut tells me that's what I should pick. But I'm going to pick the Lions. I think I can see the Lions going out there. Like I said, they go out there, they score first, they get the momentum, and they keep it. Ben Johnson calls a great game. And that was the thing. That was the other thing I wanted to say. You mentioned earlier tonight, the Niners being a top-end rush defense, and you said that was likely in part I'm not saying this word for word, but you said something along the lines of that
The
was
game
likely in
script.
part because of the game script. The Niners' potent offense just goes crazy on these teams to the point where that offense, the opposing offense, can't run the ball. They have to pass. The Lions, if they get off to an early lead in this game, they're going to run, 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 run. And then it's going to be like, wait, are the Niners not that good against the run, actually? We'll see. I think it's going to come down to Ben Johnson versus Kyle Shanahan. And I said it earlier, and I don't think I got to finish my point, but the one thing that scares me as the guy, I'm sorry, but rooting for the Lions here, the one thing that scares me about the Lions is their pass defense. I can see Purdy having that game where it shuts all the critics up, and Brandon Ayuk goes off because the Lions' corners are not that good. But maybe they lock in, and maybe they get it done. But we'll see. And then there's also George Kittle, who just now it seems like every week he has a 40-plus yard catch. It's like, what the hell? But you also have the offensive weapons on the Lions. At the end of the day, I think it's gonna be a great game, and I'm picking the Lions. Although like I said, I very well probably should pick the Niners, but I can see it. I can see it for the Lions, and I'm gonna pick them.
Yeah, I mean, I respect the decision, for you to pick the Lions. One thing I do want to add too is I don't know if Deebo Samuel is going to play in this game. I mentioned that, and that is a big thing. That changes everything that the 49ers do on offense because I mean Deebo Samuel takes a lot of attention away from Ayuk and takes a lot of attention away from McCaffrey and Kittle.
Yeah.
I also want to mention the center for the Lions, Frank Ragnow, is banged up. He sprained his knee and his ankle against the Buccaneers, but is still expected to play per Schefter.
Yeah, and that actually you knocked off two other things that I meant to talk about in this game. Earlier we were talking about the Lions and like their culture and stuff. It's like players like Frank Ragnow playing through these injuries. That's a Dan Campbell thing, and that's them being bought into like we have to win, we can win. I'm going to make sure that we do win. Frank Ragnow is a fucking beast for doing what he did, and I fully expect him to play too. And then as far as the Niners without potentially Deebo, whether or not they have Deebo, what the Niners can do to win this game, other than getting off to an early lead and keeping that pace going, run the ball with McCaffrey. You're finally in the championship game. This is the game we've been waiting for, other than the Super Bowl for this team. It's like it feels like ever since like maybe the second half of the season, Shanahan has just like dialed down the touches for McCaffrey. Am I wrong? It feels like this is the time to utilize the fuck out of him. If they do, Niners will win.
In September, you couldn't get the ball out of McCaffrey's hands. You couldn't get him off the field.
Right.
Like nobody else could get the ball. And now when the season's on the line, you want to put it like in Purdy's hands. No, McCaffrey's right there. He's right there. So, yeah, no.
This is the time to utilize him as much as possible. Like it shouldn't be the Carolina Panthers West. It shouldn't be just McCaffrey, but it should be a lot of them. It should be a lot of them.
You know what unit is going to make or break this game?
Probably, I'm assuming you're going to say special teams.
No, but that's a good guess. I feel like the defensive line for the 49ers has a big impact on this game. Like you mentioned about the stat, against Jared Goff, when he's pressured and when he's not pressured, if they can get pressure on, Jared Goff, that's huge, but also they need to play better in order to stop the run, right? David Montgomery is the type of back to wear down the defense. Gibbs, if he's able to make it through, is very explosive. But I saw when the Lions played against the Cowboys, they didn't let Jahmyr Gibbs get going. That is a blueprint that the 49ers need to implement. Don't let Jahmyr Gibbs get going. Because there was a lot of plays where it looked like guys on the Cowboys were just going untouched in, hitting Jahmyr Gibbs in the backfield. if you don't let them get going, I feel like Detroit is going to have to find other avenues, and getting pressure on Goff eliminates that threat, or not eliminates, but it silences that threat. I don't even know if silences is the right word to but it mitigates that threat. There we go. But yeah, so I've got Niners, you've got Lions, and yeah, I'm going based off of faith that the 49ers are going to win this game. And if I'm wrong, it'll just be another season where we just don't win it.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. You've said if the Lions are no longer in it, you're going to root for the 49ers. Does this mean that if the 49ers advance, you will root for them in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
I promise.
Yeah? You're not just gonna you're not gonna like, you're not going to switch up and be like, yeah, you see this red and yellow? I'm wearing it because the Chiefs.
Oh, well, okay. I mean,
I'm just
that's
kidding.
the thing. If the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl, it could be the Lions,
bets
it
are
could be
off.
the Niners, it could be Afghanistan. I'm not rooting for the Chiefs. If the Ravens are in the Super Bowl and it's versus the Niners, I'll have a hard time, admittedly, but I plan on spending time with family who are Niner fans, and I'll take the high road and root for the Niners. And this podcast honestly makes it easy for me to root for the Niners,
Mhm.
Whereas before, and if anybody doesn't know this, that's watching this, like my feeling is, again, I root for the underdog, and legacies have a large effect on my decisions. So the legacy of the Niners already having 6 or 5 Super Bowl
5.
rings.
They have 5.
5? Okay.
They've been on a
5.
never-ending quest for 6. Make
Right.
it stop. Just do it now. Just please do it now. Right now. Get it out of the way.
I want to say the Chiefs have 2 Super Bowl rings. I could be wrong. It might be 3. It might be 3. And the Ravens, I want to say, have 2. But regardless, whether the Chiefs have 3 or 2, you add up both of them, at the most you get the same amount as the Niners. So like for me, as a Raider fan who my team has 3 Super Bowl rings, and I want my team in my lifetime to eventually have the most, rooting for the Niners is hard, right? But you have the Patriots ahead of the Niners, so I'm willing to give you guys 1 Super Bowl. You win it, and never do it again in my life.
Hey, we had a deal, remember?
Yeah.
We had a deal.
Oh, yeah.
We had a deal. The Niners, our deal was you were going to let the Niners win the Super Bowl in Las Vegas.
In Las Vegas,
in the Raiders' house. And in a couple years, the Super Bowl is going to be at Levi's. And then it's the Raiders' time. And if the Raiders get all the way and the Niners are not in it, Mike, you bet your sweet ass, I'll be like, you know what? Let the Raiders have one. I made a deal with Mike. If you hold up your end, I'll hold up mine.
And again, this is very much a Lions thing right now. If you guys are facing the Buccaneers this week, I'd be rooting for the Niners. The Buccaneers won it like 2 years ago or whatever. Like, I'm tired of them. Get away, And the Niners, again, that's been my thing this season, is like, this Niners team is built up so well. They absolutely deserve to win. Their fans do deserve to win, especially the young fans like you who haven't seen it, right? So, yeah, I have no problem rooting for you guys, but it's just this week, I like the Lions. I'm here for the Lions. But if you guys beat them fair and square, cool. All right, go Niners.
Hey, even if it's not fair and square, just let it, I don't even care. If it's off of a stupid penalty and we win, weep. No, I'm kidding. I want it fair and square. That's how, I don't want there to be some sort of asterisk. Like, maybe that trophy in the back might have. Where is it? Where's the trophy?
Wait, you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's no trophy back there.
Did you take it in?
No. I threw it away. I don't need it anymore. No, it's actually it's on the ground right here. I put my Nintendo Switch up, so I don't have space for it anymore.
Okay, so everybody in the chat just know Rob Michaels' house.
Yeah.
No, I'm just I'm fucking with you. All right. Speaking of the people in the chat, I've been heavily like procrastinating on the comments. Anthony, tuning back in as always. We always appreciate it. Anthony says the Ravens he needs the Ravens to win. Yeah, I would imagine as a Raider fan that you are not ever going to root for the Chiefs, even if your child's life depended on it. Huh, Mike? You wouldn't do it.
Well, that's no. But if you give me like I said, if it's the Chiefs versus Afghanistan, give me Afghanistan. Like, hey, cool for them. They've never played in the NFL. Wow, what a weird story. Stupid.
Yeah. Anthony also says MCDC, talking about Dan Campbell, gonna suit up and play this week, and he's gonna have 10 snaps at linebacker/DN. Hey man, I would take his old ass on the field over his players who are playing very well. But you know what?
Dan
Knowing
Campbell.
him, how much coffee does he drink in the morning? You know what? Get his ass off the field too. I don't want to risk it. He's got that old man strength. Grown man strength is, it's a real thing, dude.